Speak Truth America. I am Des.
And I'm Serene.
A show where we are pro-God,
pro-freedom, and pro-truth. We're just a couple of hippie patriots bringing you what the TV can't televise.
That's right. We got producer Brian back there making it all happen. Welcome to episode 2.
All right, let's get into it. So if you guys watched our last few videos, we went around asking people on the streets, Trump or Kamala. We're here in the swing state of Arizona, so we just really wanted to get our own poll on the ground ourselves to see what people around here thought.
Right. I don't know who trusts the polls these days because so easily skewed. You never know how they're conducting it. So we thought, well, how else could we know but to get out there and go check it out ourselves? So you know, we learned a lot. We had some predictions, and I think for the most part, we were right on the money for what we thought was happening.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like Trump is killing it. Like, there were so many more Trump answers than Kamala. But surprisingly, there was a lot of undecideds. Either people didn't want to tell us who they were going for, or they actually haven't even decided yet, or they just didn't care. So that was the results that we got. And we just want to talk about all of the undecideds and why these people could be undecided and what we think about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't know enough to get in there. And, you know, most people are just worried about their everyday life. They just want to get through the day, you know, get through work and make a living. And then at the end of the day, like, I don't want to spend time doing research. I didn't like doing that in school, so why would I do that in my personal life? So people just kind of default to, you know, video games, to TV, to fun stuff. And that makes sense because if you don't see that there's a greater picture or, you know, consequences to not doing that homework, you're probably just going to default to the, you know, the path of least resistance.
Yep. And honestly, that's how the establishment has designed it for us because they've made it so that we are so wrapped up in our everyday lives, so distracted, so chasing the dollar that we don't even have time to research these things or look into it or even care about it. We just let it happen. And then we let these people come into power and we don't use our power to do anything about that.
Right. And I think if I had to generalize the average Kamala supporter, is that they don't do the research, but kind of, you know, look off, you know, the cheat sheet or will, right? You go to the TV. What does the TV tell me? What does the cheapest, easiest source of information say? And then, you know, absorb that and say, okay, well, that's what the TV said. I did my research. I looked online. I read an article or two, you know, just the headlines, but, you know, you do a little research from watching TV and you feel informed. So you think, oh, okay, I've got this. I know what's going on. I watched enough articles or I watched enough TV shows and read enough articles that I feel informed.
Yeah. And what they don't realize is that unless you're looking into these things and you know how these search engines work, how Google works, how all of these things work, you don't realize that the sources that are fed to you are literally only the mainstream, usually left-leaning sources. If you go on there, you'll see like CBS, CNN, MSNBC, you'll see ABC, you'll see all of these left-wing sources and they're giving you similar headlines. So you know, triangulate the truth and be like, okay, well, all of these are saying the same thing. So that must be true when you don't know that all of those are actually owned by the same people and run, six companies. And they're, pretty much the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party.
Right. They all have skin in the game. If you trace the donor money, just like RFK talks about, the money that comes from them all trickles back to the people who are beholden to their campaigns are the people that are funding them. So there's obviously a conflict of interest because the source of your information is coming from people who depend on these sources of income or these sources of money. So, and I think the average person hasn't done enough research to understand intricately how that relationship works. So when you try to triangulate the truth, you have to go outside different sources and really do your research to see if that truth is actually, you know, adding up when you do all the math. Now, we've seen now recently in the news how they take things like Kamala's answer on ABC, was that 60 Minutes? And they change the answer. Or we saw how the fine people on both sides, they take part of the clip, they take part of the information, remove the context, which is the most important part, which is the definition of manipulation. And then they show you just that. And when enough news networks do that, we see it all the time. People say, oh, well, they said it here, they said it there, and there. You get the sense of feeling that this is true because there's this echo chamber of truth. And, and it's not that these people are always like, we want to say, oh, they're dumb or something like that. It's not that people are dumb. It's people are being lied to. And anything that we would ask people on the streets, why do you support her? What is your favorite policy about her? We could never get any depth to it. It was something like, she's a woman. She calls Trump out on his BS.
Sorry, that's my favorite one is she's a woman. What's your favorite accomplishment of Kamala? She's a woman. I'm like, really? That's an accomplishment? You were born. Good job. You made it. Like,
right.
That just didn't make any sense to me. And I'm a woman, so.
Right. I mean, imagine being like, well, I'm voting for him because he's a man. Like, that's not exactly a strong enough reason. I mean, just being a man alone, is he a good man? Or a good woman? Is she intelligent? Does she have integrity? You don't want to mess up your chances in the future, right? If you put a bad woman in there, right? You could mess up your chances in the future of people's perception of how good a woman leader as president could be, right?
Yeah, and it's so interesting because people forget so quickly. Like, just like a year ago, she was ranked the worst VP ever on mainstream sources. And what do you know, fast forward to today, she's like this amazing woman and we should vote for her because of X, Y, and Z. They feed us all these lies. And then if you do research outside of their propaganda machine, they tell you that that's fake. They tell you that that's disinformation, that you shouldn't trust those sources, that that's right-wing conspiracy theories and all of that. And they get you to not believe the truth and to believe their lies, which is like the definition of propaganda.
Right. And I think it's crazy that we say these things as society, as people, we say things that sound like they make a lot of sense, right? We'll say, oh, well, I'm going to vote. So, I'm Native American. So if someone's running for president and they're Native American too, aren't you going to vote for them? And it's like on surface level, that sounds like that makes sense. That specious argument of like, well, you're brown or you're this ethnic group and so are they. So why aren't you going to vote for them? It sounds like that makes sense, right? They're going to do something for me because we have some kind of similar thing that you could describe us as the same. But really, when you think about it, that makes no sense at all. Because you're essentially saying is that in the case of like Native Americans, let's say, you're essentially saying no Native American can do another Native American wrong. There's not one thing. There's not ever been an instance of a Native American lying to another Native American. There's never been a situation where crime against a Native American was done by another Native American, which we all know is patently false. Like, of course, that happens all the time. In fact, most of the crime done to minorities are done from the same people from the same minority group.
Well, the left has only been able to remain in power because they use identity politics. They hit you in your pain points because everybody's got some sort of pain point, and it usually has to do with their identity because that's something that's so near and dear to people's hearts. And so they use that identity politics against the people and have them vote against their own interests because they think that someone of their same identity is going to benefit them when they don't realize that those people are corruptible too. And those people can turn against their own people just as fast as anyone else.
Right. I mean, if you look at, again, staying with the Native American, like if you look at the Navajo res and pretty much all reses, you have a high rate of corruption. Like it's kind of just known. I mean, even with Puerto Rico being in the news, corruption, you ask people, Boricua from Puerto Rico, is there a corruption problem in Puerto Rico? They'll say, yeah, big time. Same thing with the Native American, the Navajo res. Has there been a lot of rampant history of corruption? Yes, big time. People enriching themselves and the tribal council members? Yes. So, I mean, when you look at the actual history of how much corruption and things have happened, there's an abundance of it. So how does it make any sense that people of the same ethnic group are somehow just going to be exempt from doing wrong to that same ethnic group?
Right. Or like saying that they're going to vote for her because she's a woman and you're a woman, so you should want to vote for her. And it's like, we shouldn't be voting based on if you're a woman, if you're black, if you're brown, if you're whatever. We should be voting based on if you can get the job done. Like 100%. If you're going to go into surgery and like you only want a woman to perform your surgery because you're a woman, you might not get the best surgeon for the surgery that you need. Like that's just so ridiculous. And in a situation like surgery, you would never, ever, ever think that way. So I don't know why when it comes to electing our officials that people think that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're like, someone's going in for surgery and they're like, okay, well, I want to make sure he's the best surgeon. I got to find out, where did he go to school? How many surgeries has he done? Is he black? Is he Native American? Like, what would that have to do with anything? Why would anybody ever consider that? The color of your skin. Well, I only want someone who's Native American to do the job. Well, he's only had a few surgeries as opposed to this person over here has done 100 successful surgeries, but this one's Native. Like, what in whose mind would that make sense to? How would that help anybody make a better, more informed decision? It doesn't.
Yeah, and when it comes to like surgery and you're talking about your own body and something that could actually potentially harm you, you would never think like that. So people aren't understanding and connecting those dots of like when we're electing people, those are people that are making decisions for us and our future. So that could very potentially harm us or be very good for us depending on who we elect. So we should be focusing more on merit and character and things that people have done already and voting based on that and not based on skin color or gender or any identity politics. Right. And that's what the left has like really mastered is the identity politics.
Because it's so visceral. It's so deeply connected to the tribalism that we've had going, back to eons. Of course, it's like you defend your people, you stand for your own people. And we're used to being in that dynamic as a humanity, I believe. So they know that it really triggers us at a real deep point to say, oh, well, you got to stand behind this person. Otherwise, you're betraying your own people.
Which goes completely against what the United States of America was founded on. We are supposed to be united as the United States, not as different groups of people. Like we are all Americans.
Right.
So that's our base. And then we go from there based on merit and hard work and all of these other things that actually matter.
It's like the great American hero, Martin Luther King Jr. said, not based on the color of the content. We judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin.
Right.
It means as much to judge someone by the color of the skin means as much as to judge them by the color of their eyes. It doesn't make that kind of a difference.
Right? Can you imagine? I only want a blue-eyed president.
Right. Yeah. No, I never mess with those green-eyed girls. Actually, green-eyed girls are the best.
Well, going back to our experience and when we were out there asking people who they're voting for, we got a lot of God answers, which is really good. People are saying Jesus or God or undecided, people that were more concerned with faith and things like that. And that is really, really, really good. So don't get me wrong, but it was just so interesting how they didn't want to give answers and how they just went to, well, I'm just putting my faith in Jesus. And it's like, well, we're here on earth. We have the free will to choose our leaders. Do you think God just wants us to sit back and do nothing? Like, that's like saying like, well, I don't have to work because I'm just going to put my faith in God, that God's just going to provide everything for me. And I mean, to a sense, he will. But if you're trying to strive for more, if you're trying to make something happen for yourself, like you can't just sit back and just hope that it happens. Like you have to meet God halfway and you have to do your part. So I know a lot of Christians are sitting this one out or just sitting out elections in general. And personally, I think that's a really, really foolish move. And I don't think that that's what God wants us to do.
Yeah, isn't that the parable of the 3 coins or the coins that were given? God gave, or there was the parable of the Lord, a king gave 3 of his servants coins, right? And each one of them did something different with them. One guy took it out and made a ton of coins and then gave it back to the king with interest. Same thing with the other guy who took some of the coin and made something with it and still gave more to the king back than what he was given. And the third guy had buried the coin, right? Almost kind of spitefully saying that,
it's like saving it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to do anything with it. That was exactly the opposite. You were supposed to take it and do something with it. To me, that's the parable of that teaching of Jesus, to say, you have these gifts that have been given to you. It's like the biggest sin to do nothing with it, in a sense,
Yeah, especially when we're up against what we're up against right now. It's so apparent and it's never been more clear that the left is working for the devil, okay? Like, I'm sure we can all see that. Even if the Christians don't want to admit it that we talk to, like, you can tell kind of by the way that some of them were speaking that they were leaning more towards Trump, but they didn't want to outright say it. And I think it's this whole thing of like, well, Trump's not very Jesus-like. And they compared Trump to Jesus, which we're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to compare our political leaders to Jesus because that's just never going to be comparable. And they want this perfect person. They want somebody that is 100% pro-life that's going to say like, yes, we are doing a national abortion ban. Like they want that. And they forget that the president is president to all people, not just pro-life people, not just Christians, not just people of the same mind. They like the president has to represent all people. And I think that Trump's position on the abortion, on his stance on abortion, I think it's like the perfect stance that a president should have, because that's really what the United States is all about, is that each state gets to decide how they govern themselves. And that's exactly what Trump has done. And that's exactly what he continues to say that he's going to do, is to give the power back to the states. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but we don't want a dictator, right? Like, that's the opposite of what we want. We don't want somebody to be like, no, this is what we're doing, national ban on anything, you know?
The president isn't there to enforce his own personal beliefs. He's there to represent everyone.
Pro-life in his personal beliefs. Like, he's got kids, like...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. You got to be there as the president. I think people get that kind of mixed up. He's not there, he or she is not there to be the president for just the people who elect him. It's supposed to be for all people of the United States to the best degree that you can. You have to represent everyone, even when you don't agree with those views.
Right.
And I think people miss that up. You know, it's like they say, oh, yeah, people say, oh, he's not Jesus-like or whatever. I mean, we could do a whole show just on that, about how you're actually wrong about that. I would say, personally, you're clearly wrong if you start looking at different verses in the Bible, by going on stuff like that. Like, Trump isn't supposed to be Jesus. And he's not supposed to be Jesus-like, because nobody can be. I mean, we're all supposed to be like Jesus, of like mind, of it. Strive for that. But Jesus is perfect, and he's the only one who's perfect. Okay, so Trump's never going to be perfect. Trump's not supposed to be the representation of perfection. Trump's supposed to be the representation of imperfection, of man. And who's more of an imperfect, flawed character than Trump, than all of us? He's the perfect representation of the imperfect man.
Right.
And our triumph over the evil, over the temptations. Yeah, we're all tempted all the time. But to overcome those, what she has. I mean, he's been a good person his whole life. He's given to so many people. Oh, yeah, people already want to have an episode of us just talking about the good things that he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
That he's done his whole life. Yeah.
There's so many.
I mean, they talk about, oh, he brings division. It's like, well, read, what is it, Luke 22, where he says, Jesus says, I came here, surely I did not come here to bring peace. I came here to bring division. And we can pull that verse up to give you the right exact one, because I don't want to misquote it. But there are things that people think that what the president or what Trump has been and done is inconsistent, when it's actually consistent. Because look at when Jesus at his time was upsetting the powers that be.
Right.
And he had to say things that were unpopular.
And people said that he was divisive.
He was divisive.
He was going against the powers that be.
People said that he was lying, right? They're saying he's not the son of God. He's lying. He's a liar. So yeah, there are parallels that line up perfectly when you look at what Trump's doing and how Jesus, not saying Trump is anything like Jesus, not comparing them at all. And he's definitely not a Messiah.
Might be anointed.
Well, he might be anointed, but he's definitely not the Messiah. He's definitely not the Son of God. He's definitely not Christ. He's definitely not. Just so let's be clear on that. That's, what Trump is. He's the modern day King David. He's going up against the giants, the big giants, tech giants, big pharma, big agri, big banking, big everything, big
government,
oil, big government, everything. He's taking on the giants as a little guy. People think he's some 1% of the 1%. No, he's a little tiny billionaire. And there's really big billionaires.
Right. And for Christians that don't want to vote for Trump because of all of that, like, I just ask you, like, out of the two candidates, out of the options that we have, which is the one that proclaims the name of Jesus, that talks about God openly, that tells everybody that he is thankful to God and praises God? Like, you don't really see Kamala saying anything like that. In fact, there was somebody at one of her rallies that yelled out, Jesus is Lord. And what did she say? She said, you're at the wrong rally. So if you're at the wrong rally, what was she referring to? Obviously a Trump rally. So if she's referring to a Trump rally, then who's aligned with God?
Right.
Like the choice has never been so clear. And honestly, no one can sit this one out.
She never cleared that up, was never like, no, this is what I meant.
No.
And when you think about it, if you're a person of God and you're saying, well, I'm leaving it up to God. Well, you're really not leaving it up to God, because God is supreme. And this is not that's why this is a vote. It's from us people who have a voting power and not of supreme Lord, because that's just, already decided. We are here to make a decision. So you're saying you're leaving it up to God, but you're not leaving it up to God. What you are is leaving it up to people who don't believe in God,
right,
to decide for you.
Exactly.
So if you're a person that believes in God, you need to be in there. You need to be exercising your right. That's what I completely believe that we're here to do.
Yeah. And if you're looking for the perfect candidate, like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but you're never going to find one. No one's ever going to be perfect for everyone. Politics wise, it's just not going to happen. And so, like, if you just put on hold Trump and Kamala, you just like don't even think about them, and you look at who is endorsing them and who is surrounding them, who's on their transition teams and all of that, like, you will find that on the left is really the uniparty. So you do have Republicans and Democrats, and I know Kamala loves to talk about her Republican endorsements, but you look at those Republicans, and those were the ones that were advocating for war and all these horrible things. And they were the ones that gave Republicans a bad name. They were the ones that gave Republicans the name of being racist, warmongers, like the party of not good, right? Like, we don't like these people. And now all of a sudden, like, she's bringing unity. Like, no, it's called the uniparty. And that's exactly what it is. And you compare that to what is happening on the right, on the side, on Trump's team, and you have real unity. For the first time in my lifetime, I'm seeing real unity. Lifelong Democrat families, like RFK, like his family is a prominent Democrat family, and they were like pretty much like celebrities of America. And he's behind Trump. You have Tulsi Gabbard, who's been a Democrat her whole life, now behind Trump, and actually switched to the Republican Party. So you can really see where people are aligning, and you could see the true unity that's happening over here. And if you've ever been to a Trump rally and you see all these people talking, like, you can feel it. You can feel it in the room. You can feel God's presence in the room. People are praising God, singing about God, thanking God. So, like, if you are not wanting to vote because you just want to leave it up to God, like, this is the party of God. Like, get with it, people.
Right. That's how you know it's real. When you go to a Trump rally and you really feel this magic, you feel this unit, you feel it, you see it. There's just so much love, so much camaraderie together, and the diversity of people. For once, you are just in a spot where you just know everybody is united in terms of what they feel like, their values. I mean, of course, there's going to be variations to some degree, but you just feel the overall unity eclipsing anything that has, anything that would give us a reason to divide or to feel like we're different. Everything is just put on the side because you just feel that while you're there.
Yeah.
And that's something you can't explain through numbers or polls or whatever. When you go there, you're just like, dang, this is what I want every day. If every day people treated each other like this is America.
Yeah.
This is what the ethos of America is all about.
Yeah. And like, I was a big festival goer, like a few years back, and this was even more magical than feelings that I got there. Like, at a festival, everybody's there for the good vibes, and everybody's loving, and everybody's friends and family, and you'll give the shirt off your back if someone needs it. Like, at a Trump rally, it's that exact same thing, but with a way bigger purpose behind it. And you actually know that you're doing something that's going to impact our nation and the world. And there's just like no better connecting force than that.
Right. Yeah. It's like you go to a festival or a concert, people are there getting drunk, getting high, doing stuff to
Right.
kind of escape. Everybody here is ready to do work. Everybody's there has been standing in line for hours because we believe in something. We're here to give a crap about something, not to escape caring about things.
Right.
So you just feel that and you just know that everybody's about it and there's a magic to that. And it's so amazing.
Totally.
Yeah.
So to wrap it all up, we definitely urge everybody to go vote. Whether you are undecided or you know who you're going to vote for, like really do your research, weigh your options, see who's most in line with your values. We're not going to tell you who to vote for. Obviously, you know who we're voting for or who have already voted for. But it's really important that we all do our part, especially now. This is the biggest election of all time, really, and it's going to decide the fate of our nation. And it's never been more important.
I'd say if you want to see what if you want a crystal ball and to see what a Kamala type of presidency would look like, you don't have to look any further than what happened at that Beyonce performance. So they're promising Beyonce performance, but what do you get? 4 minutes of Beyonce speaking. They're going to say the economy. Oh, we're going to do this opportunity economy. What are you going to get? A bunch of crap with more taxes.
Yeah.
What they're promising and what they're delivering. That was a perfect example of what you can expect on what they
Totally.
deliver on their promises.
Right.
100%.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being with us on Speak Truth America. And we very much encourage you to always speak the truth, even if your voice shakes.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. God bless you. Good night.
God bless.